Talking something new for from the last lecture session. If you guys can remember, we looked at something related to Swift UI, which is the way we develop our US applications. Today we'll be looking at another framework. It will be more into developing applications for both iOS and Android. The reason behind is that we have talked about these things, like there are pros and cons in terms of developing applications for multiple platforms. So we'll be looking into cross-platform application development frameworks such as Flutter or React Native. So compared to popularity or maturity and everything, I think React Native is much more popular among the web developers. The main reason behind that is they share some similarities between React. I mean, the UIs, the things, the web, how you structure your code is pretty much similar to the way you even code HTML or React application. But soon after you will realize that even in Flutter, it's the same scenario, it's the same thing that we're going to be looking at. So in here, how many of you guys have tried out Flutter, did some development? Please raise your hand. Anyone who have tried out Flutter? Okay, 1, 2. So what I'll do is I will look into try to keep the session more relevant to everyone. Otherwise, people who know Flutter will get a little bit disappointed. But who knows? There are new things that we can learn every day. Okay. So first thing first. So Flutter is a framework which can develop applications for both iOS and Android. So it supports major platforms like iOS and Android. Let's see, Flutter. Yeah. So if you go to the Flutter website itself, you'll see plenty of documentation on what sort of application that you can build. But recently, with the Flutter moving towards the web, now not only iOS and Android applications, you can develop web applications or websites or web apps as well as phone applications in the same code base. That means if you develop one Flutter application, you can port it to several platforms, including web and mobile. The mobile version is the initiated one, but recently with with the latest Flutter version, Flutter 2 or 3, if I can remember, we have the capability of developing application for both web and mobile. Okay, the web was there, but not in a way that it is stable. But now we can consider it's a little bit stable. Okay, but I would not recommend you to develop your next big web application in Flutter, but I would recommend, if you guys, if you have a requirement that you think you can cater for both mobile providers, iOS and Android, have a look at Flutter, and you guys can get a great result on that. Okay, so getting started. as you might have seen, even though this is a cross-platform application development framework, the limitation towards iOS is there. Okay, so if you need to develop an application for Apple or iOS, obviously the compiling and all those stuff should happen in a Mac, but it is not mandatory to develop. Okay, when you are developing, you can develop either on a Linux or a Windows machine, or even if you have other Chrome OS or something like that. But when you're finally building it, or when you're trying to run it in a simulator, this kind of situation, you would need a Mac in order to test. Okay, so there are like few things that you need to do in order to start the setting up of the platform. Like if you go with Linux, you need to set up a few requirements like this. All the things that is in here is there for you. You can download it via Snap or whatever the framework, whatever the manual process that you like. These all are like really simple things to do. And even I have done, even though I'm not in a Linux machine, since I'm in a Mac OS, I have done these things for my Mac, and I have set this class path and everything. The first thing that I need to do to verify whether I am capable of running Flutter is to run this Flutter Doctor command. Okay, so Flutter Doctor command is a terminal command which tells you whether you have correct capabilities, or whether you have everything you need to do, everything you need to go ahead with Flutter. Yeah. Okay, so I ran Flutter Doctor, and that's how I got this output. Okay, and you can see that I'm actually a little bit outdated. On the other hand, if I come from Flutter, I did not upgrade it, but for your own safety, and it's easy if you go with all the latest and greatest, so that that would make less hassle when you are dealing with errors. Okay, so I have Flutter installed. Okay, and I have these Android keychain error. I hope it won't do much error, but in this case, if you have a broken command line tool component, or Android license is missing, whatever you can do, there is instructions of how you're gonna get resolved it. Okay, for instance, I want to get rid of the Android license state, so I can just simply copy this command and try to paste it out. Yeah, so it's giving me another errors, like the SDK manager is not installed and everything is gonna. So I hope these things won't be a problem at the time when we are developing the application. But for now, let's go ahead and try to run this application. If we get into a trouble, we'll troubleshoot on the fly. Okay. All right. So I have few errors within my setup. Let's ignore for this moment. So what I'll do is I will create a directory where I will create a simple Flutter application. Okay, and I will I will create this in the SENG 2023, something like that. Okay, I will cd to that directory. Better to have places in my directory name. It always gives me some sort of trouble. Okay, I'm in the directory. So you can, if you have Flutter installed, you can just hit Flutter, the command itself, and it will give all the things that you can do with the Flutter command itself. Okay, so there are Flutter Doctor, one of the commands that we have recently executed, and in terms of creating trying devices, and we can find drives, cleans. We will go one by one at the time when we need these things. But for now, you can get all the commands listed out as as in here. So the command that we are interested in here for creating an application is create command. So we will try to execute this command and come up with a new project. But when you're creating a command, when you're creating a new project, make sure you don't give the project name as test or test 1, 2, 3. Sometimes those names are conflicting with the existing Flutter things, especially on some occasions. For example, I have given one time a project name called test, and there is a specific section for testing, and it is getting confused as they are not allowing. So let's give it a meaningful name, and I will give let me clear the. I'll give Flutter create, and I can say SENG 2243. Okay. So what it does is it's going to create application for us, and it is almost done. Everything that we need to do with the project. Okay. So you guys can see that they are giving instruction how you can run this application. Okay, let me try that, and I will say Flutter run. Okay, let's see what we get. Probably this is gonna be developing on Chrome. And to quit. Multiple devices found: Mac OS desktop, Darwin, and Chrome web, JavaScript. I think I have two browsers running. That might be the issue. I will choose the second one. Okay, let's give it a couple of minutes. There you go. So if you guys can remember, Flutter now runs in web and mobile. Okay, this is the web version. Okay, if you guys have let's for example a mobile device is ready, this is going to be the same feeling. This is the same UI that you will be seeing in the application itself. Okay, you can click on this button and it will do some changes. If you refresh, it's going to go back to 0. And if you refresh again, it's going to go back again to 0. So since I have not configured a device, or since I don't have an emulator running on my application, it's going to go with whatever the devices that we have. Currently, I am having the web as an option. So it is running there. So for instance, I need to run this in a simulator. Okay, let's see how that goes. Let me open up the simulator, which I can run. Okay, so I have started a simulator, and you guys can see there are a bunch of applications. And what I can do is I'll stop running the command from here. Okay, Control C in my place, and I will clear the command line. And if I say Flutter Devices, okay, so it's going to list out all the devices which I can run the application. Okay, so if you guys clearly see, there is iPhone 14.4, which is my simulator in here, and there is Mac and Chrome OS as two other options. Okay, since I did not have iPhone 14 earlier on, I could not select a device to run. Now, since I have opened it, now I can run it. So if I go and hit Flutter run again, so it's, since I have iOS simulator running, it's gonna get some iOS tools which we will be needing to go ahead. And after those things are done, and remember, these things happens for the first time if you are running on in your machine. Otherwise, it's not a reoccurring thing. Okay. So till that's going on, let's go further into things that we have generated so far. Okay. Yeah. So the nice thing about Flutter is that you can do your coding in a simple text editor, or even not IDE, but something like VS Code. So if you take Xcode, Android Studio, those are considered to be as IDEs, integrated development environments. But when it is coming to applications like VS Code, we consider those things as light text editors. Okay, so the great thing about is that we can open our application in here, and we can start the coding without any IDE in presence. Okay, so you don't need something like Xcode or something like that in order to start coding. Simple solution like VS Code will help. All right, let's have a look around the application that Flutter has generated for us. Okay, so there are a bunch of directories that you can see, and there are a bunch of things you guys can go through, but right now we will not be looking into each and every aspect of this application. And by the way, we can develop desktop applications. That's why this Linux, Mac OS, and Windows directories are there for. Okay, you can compile your application and ship it to as a native application from Flutter. Okay, or you can have an Android application, and you can have an iOS application, or directly web. So all the aspects that we need to cover is almost already in here. So you can develop an Android application, an iOS application, a native Linux, Mac, or Windows application, or you can go for a web application. But remember, that does not mean that everything that we develop on iOS, it's going to magically work on a web, and it's going to be magically working on macOS. Okay, it's not the case. You have some barriers between you. So, sorry, you have to overcome those things. Otherwise, what will happen? It's not going to magically work on each and every platform. Okay. So the other thing about Flutter is not using any of the languages we have encountered so far. It is not using Java, it's not using Kotlin, Swift, Objective-C or nothing. It uses a programming language called Dart. Okay, Dart is the programming language which we can code our things. Okay, and the main entry point for our application is this lib directory. Okay, not sure whether you guys can see, so I will zoom in a little bit. So there is this lib directory where it contains all the source code related to our application. And right now there is only this main.dart file. Okay, so you would say, hey, there is another language coming on, enough already. We have learned Kotlin, we have seen Swift, now there is Dart. If I want to go React, I need to learn JavaScript or TypeScript and all those things. But from my opinion, what I see in these languages, they quite have the similar approaches, similar syntax, and those are really easy to learn. Okay, even if you're coming from another programming language or platforms, there is special guides where you can get helped or speed ups, where you can get some similarities between these frameworks. So if, for example, if you are an Android developer, switching back or learning Flutter would be easy if you follow these guidelines. Same goes to UI, dev kits, React Native, web, Xamarin Forms, and all those things. So there are ways that you can speed up your development task, but if you are really new, that is also fine. But it would be really helpful if you have the knowledge of other frameworks, especially Swift UI or Android Jetpack Compose. Those things are really similar in terms of the way they work, the mechanism behind and everything. It's going to be really easy when you guys get to know these things. Okay. All right. The application that we have seen, it is this main.dart file. Okay, let me go through each and every class. So we have an application right under 106, right around 116 lines. But if you get rid of these comments, okay, it will be even much more less. If I can remember, it is around 50 lines. Yeah. So you can have application around 50 lines of codes. Okay. And this is the application that we have written so far. Okay. And other things that we need to know before we dive into Flutter, that the dependency management and building. Okay, if you guys can remember, Xcode has its own build system. Android uses something like Gradle, and Gradle also help us with dependency management. In Xcode, we have similar thing like CocoaPods, but recently, most of the time, most of the applications will use something like called Swift Package Manager, which helps us to work with dependencies. Okay. In Flutter, we have the same thing. We have the place. We have this file called pubspec. Okay, it's a YAML file, and it's containing something similar to build.gradle file. So it has the dependencies for our application. For example, the dependencies section, and it is depending on the Flutter SDK, obviously, to develop a Flutter application. And there is the Cupertino icon. Okay, Cupertino is the UI for iOS, the default UI that you will see in iOS. So you can use the Cupertino icons. Okay. Then there is development dependencies, and we call these things as dependencies, where we use the development related packages. For example, Flutter Flutter tester, and Flutter lints. Okay, these things will help during our development time, same as that we have seen in Android and iOS. There are Flutter related configurations as well. Okay, you can see these things like how to add an image, how to add an image, how to add the font, and those kind of informations are built into this pubspec YAML file. So you guys can use these in order to go through the application. Okay, and yeah, there are like a lot of configuration and a lot of these configurations are not at this moment is really important, but you guys will see each and every use cases while we are developing. So when we are developing a Flutter application, okay, the Flutter application actually is like a host in a embedded native application. For example, if I go to the if I go to the Android directory, you guys can see something similar that you guys have seen earlier on, which is the app directory, src, main, Java or Kotlin, and you will see the main activity. Okay, and you guys will see the Android menu. Okay, these things are by default there. So we are developing an application which is going to be hosted upon existing Android or iOS application. Okay, so if you guys can remember, we are normally extending in a native Android application app compact activity. Right now we are embedding something called Flutter activity. Okay, if you go to the build.gradle, there will be some dependencies that you will be familiar with. Okay, and there are a few other things that will be changed in here. And if you go to the same iOS directory, okay, and you will see the app delegate Swift. Okay, this is where the Swift application starts. Okay, and this is where the Flutter will take over from an underlying iOS application. And yeah, apart from the basic Flutter related stuff, okay, the underlying application is there. Or sorry, if you need something specific for these iOS or Android, you guys can go here and change these things. But unless you know what you are doing, do not mess around with these directories. It will sometimes break your application. That can happen. Okay, so this is the build directory, which is like a temporary build for what's going on. And yeah, pretty much we have covered all the things, and we have talked about the pub spec, and we have talked about the different build systems Flutter supports. And let's go to the lib and main.dot. Okay, this is where the magic happens, the coding starts. So up until now, any questions, guys? Any questions that you need more answers? Okay. Any questions? Yes? Nothing?
Sir,
Yeah.
can we run a Flutter project on Android Studio?
Sorry, Android?
Yes. Can we run a Flutter project on Android Studio?
Yeah, okay. So what you're asking is if I get the question correctly, can we run Flutter on an existing Android application? Am I correct? Is that your question? I think what he meant by that is the same thing, because obviously I think I got disconnected, I'm not sure why. Okay, let me start sharing the screen. Okay, hope you guys can see my screen. Everyone can see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. So from the last question, if I understood correctly, so obviously when we are creating a new application, we get the Android application out of the box. Okay, so the question, I think, if I rephrase it, if we have an Android application which is already an existing application, can we integrate Flutter into that? Is that your question, if I rephrase it correctly? Okay, can we run Flutter on Android Studio? Oh, yeah. So I think what Flutter application on Android Studio. Yeah, we can do. If you like, you can develop Flutter applications using Android Studio as well. No issues there. There are some plugins, of course, you need to install in order to start the development process. Like there is the Dart compiler and all those things. If you have those things in place, yeah, no issues. Go ahead with Android Studio. You get the same look and feeling. It's the same thing. You don't have to worry about any changes or anything like that. It's going to be the same thing. Okay, yeah, you can develop Android, develop a Flutter application using Android Studio. No issues. Remember, you have to have the plugins and everything configured correctly. My choice in this scenario is VS Code. It's because it's obviously lightweight compared to Android Studio. But there is nothing stopping you from developing Flutter application in Xcode. Sorry, not in Xcode, in Android Studio, if you have configured it correctly. Yeah, go ahead. But as far as I know, there is no out-of-the-box support in Xcode, because Xcode is like something developed for iOS application only. So I don't think you will be able to run a Flutter application. Develop a Flutter application using Xcode, but Android Studio, yes. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, good ones. Thank you for asking question. Yes. Any other questions, guys? If you are unable to speak, just put it in the chat. But Android Studio has high performance than running Flutter projects. High performance in a sense, I don't see any direct comparison. I haven't seen, but from my experience, I haven't seen a significant speed among Android Studio and Flutter relationship. I honestly haven't noticed that. But yeah, if you ask me, if you ask me, like, is there a performance improvement in Android Studio, I honestly don't know, but you guys can check both platforms. Okay, you can open the same application in Android Studio and VS Code, run the same application and see whether there is any difference in terms of performance. I honestly haven't seen such a performance improvement, but if you have, please let me know, because I'm not aware of such a thing. If Flutter projects runs better on Android Studio, yes, go ahead and use it. But for now, I would stick with the VS Code for this section, if you guys don't mind. Okay. But yeah, go ahead. If you have any comparisons that you guys have seen or any improvements that you guys have found yourself, yes, post me the results. Then I will share with the others. On a personal note, I have not seen such a drastic change. But yeah, let's keep it in open discussion and share the results. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for those inputs. That's making my knowledge grow as well. Yeah, any other questions before we move forward? Okay. Yeah, if you have, just put it in the chat, we will discuss. All right. So in Flutter, we have this concept called widgets. Okay. Widgets. So throughout this course, throughout this lecture series, you will heard the term widget so many times. Okay. So in theory, like if you look at Swift UI, Jetpack Compose, Android XML. So everything that you will see is something we call a view. Okay, we see a view. That's why we have text view, we have column views and everything in Swift and Jetpack Compose. But in Flutter, we don't call them views per se, but we call those things as widgets. Okay, so widget is in Flutter. Most of the time, the people will say like almost everything is a widget. Okay, so anything that you will be developing, it's gonna be a widget. So we will be developing widgets, and we will take a look at how these widgets will look when we are developing the application. Okay, so it's a simple task that it's a simple thing that we can get these applications composition into widgets. Okay, it's the same concepts that we have seen in Swift UI, Jetpack Compose. The same concepts. We have a bunch of what do you call components, bunch of views that we need to show, and we can arrange them as we like, and we can work with those things. So in Flutter, you will find, as I mentioned, everything is a widget, but there are two types of widgets. Okay, mainly two type of widgets. Either it's going to be a stateless widget or a stateful widget. Okay, so there are two types. One thing is the stateless widget. The other one is stateful widget. So what we understand by stateless widget and stateful widget? What is the difference? So obviously, by the name implies, there is this widget which does not contain any state. And there is the stateful widget, which obviously implies that this widget has some sort of state. So what do you understand by state? State is the current situation, current behavior of the widget. Okay, so state is what's the current position, what are the current attributes, current variables, and current things the widget contains. Okay, this widget is able to have the current status, current position, or we can say current current attributes, current behaviors remembered by this widget. But there is stateless widget, which does not containing any state. It's just gonna go and show you some data. It's not gonna be responsible for maintaining a state. Okay, it's just gonna show you something, and it's not gonna be responsible for keeping any records. Okay, keeping any state. It won't remember your variables or your state, any attributes, anything that you will be changing. It does not create a state. So why do we need this stateful and stateless widget? Okay, so the key reason behind that this stateful and stateless widget is that there are some components. We just need to show the outputs, and we don't need others to worry about these things. For example, there is this button that you will see in, there is this counter that you will see here. Right now, what I can do is if I click on this button, it will increment the number in here. Okay. Now, if you guys can see everything in this screen, the current state of this is that whatever the variable this is holding, it is holding a value 14. Okay. Now, if I go to my application, and there is something called this primary switch. Okay, I can change it from blue to green. Okay, and if I hit save, and since I am running on the terminal itself, there is this button that I need to press on the terminal, which is R. Just give me a second. I think R is not the key. Hot restart. Flutter Dev Tools, Jump Widget Hierarchy. I think supposed to be simple or capital. Not sure. Yeah. So in order to refresh this page, what we need to do is, if you guys can remember, I use this command flutter run. Let me clear it out. I use this flutter run command. Okay, let me run it once again to show you something. And Chrome is connecting. And my application started in here. You can see to hot restart while running, press RO, capital R. For more details, you can hit HOQ. Then you get the more details on that. But Right now, if I want to hot reload this application, that means reload while developing, I have to go to this console and hit R, and it is performing a hot reload. Okay, and if I change this to something like purple, if I'm not mistaken, purple is not one of the colors available. Let me say red. Yeah, so whenever I do a change in here, I have to go to that particular terminal and hit R or shift R to make the reload happen. Okay, so that's kind of annoying. Okay, that's not the full intention of Flutter itself. So what we will do is we will have some extension installed in here. So if I go to Flutter, if I go to VS Code and go to the Flutter, I search something for extension called Flutter, and the first one is the Dart code, and I will install that right now, and it will give me some superpowers in terms of Flutter development. Okay, if you guys can remember, I can run it in the terminal. That is also fine. We choose there. But if you want the full potential, you can install this extension. Okay, and in here, that is the Flutter extension would make more sense to have. Okay, so I will just go and stop the Flutter run command. If you guys can remember, this is the running one. I will just terminate it, and I won't be needing that anytime soon. So what I will do is I will click on this main.dart, and I can go and select this run or debug. Okay, and I no configuration found. If you guys can see, this is debugging mode. It is running the application. There you go. So by this time, it is not even considering the web. It is running out of the native iOS application. As I mentioned earlier, you guys can build the web application. Yes, and you guys can also develop the native application. So in this instance, we are running on a native container. Okay, this is going to be a native application that we are running. So let's try a little bit more on this. Okay, let's go to the main.dart and try to change this to green. Okay, and hit save. As you guys can see, I did not hot reload or do anything, some sort of. I just changed the color. Okay, I will change it to purple and hit save, Control S, or whatever the save button that you have in the platform. What it does is it's automatically changing as I do that. So if I want it to be pink, I don't know where the pink is. Yeah, pink is there, and it's going to be in pink. The best thing that you will see is that if I increment this, okay, I will increment it to 15, and if I go hit and change it to red, I don't think you guys can see. I will change something more. Yeah, there you go. So I changed the code. Okay, in here I have actually changed the theme of our application. And when I change the theme, you guys can see the state, the current state of this number has not changed. Okay, this because the application keep the stateful widget in action. But in that way, we do not jeopardize our application state. Okay, you can do any changes and it still maintain the current state of the application. So That is something very useful when we are developing application very rapidly. So we don't have to deploy it and see, deploy it and again and see, and this kind of situation can be omitted. Okay, while we are coding, the application get refreshed and you can see most of it. But it is not the case for everything that we do in Flutter, but 90% of the thing that we are doing, we can simply change it on the way, and we can change this stuff. For example, you can see you have pushed this many times. Okay, I can just simply say run decr, and if I hit save, you can see that the text get appended, the expected result is there, and the state of the current application, it's remain the same. So that's kind of a helpful thing when you are rapidly developing application. But remember, this only happens in full applications. Okay, so let me do a quick check. Page 1, right? Okay, so we have seen the basic anatomy and all those things. We have seen what it is capable of, but we haven't gone through what are the things that we can do on these things. Okay, so I will take this code and I will try to destroy this in a way. Okay, then you guys can get an idea what are these things are for and why these things are important. So let me keep the comment, but I will comment out all of these codes for now. Okay, so so first thing that we will be seeing is the give me a second, guys. Okay. Yeah, the first thing that you will see is this method called main. Okay, so the main what will happen is it will look at it will start to run our application in this point. Give me a second, guys. Okay, so the main is the starting point of our application. So in any application, any Flutter application, you will see this main method. Okay, it's something similar to main method that you guys have seen in Java, which does the same thing. You will get start. It's the starting point of our application. Okay, this is the one. And the next thing is that we are expecting is this run app method. Okay, run app method is something directly coming from Flutter itself. So run app is expecting a widget that we need to show. Okay, so in order to show something in our screen that what you guys are seeing in here, the run app method is expecting a widget. Okay, so if we were able to give a widget, then it would show that in our application. So let's do that. There is a widget called text, and the text widget can handle anything like, let's say, ISENG 22243, if I am not mistaken. Okay, and Yeah, sometimes these kind of huge changes might need to restart. Okay, so I will restart this. Form part diagnosis, no direction. Okay, so it is complaining. Okay, even though you are giving you are giving a widget, it is not going to be sufficient for us to run. That is no directionally widget found. This is because when we are running a Flutter application, it needs the directionality to be provided to run application. What do you understand by directionality? Directionality is the component where you give LTR or RTR. That means left side alignment or right side alignment. So if you guys know uh, we are used to the left side alignment, so everything starting from left to right. Okay, whatever we write from left to right, but there are some Arabic countries where you use the other way around. That means right to left. Okay, so in order to Flutter to work that, we need to provide the directionally widget out of there. Otherwise, it won't work. We need to provide a directional widget. Let's see how we can do that. Guys, give me a second. I'm switching to my other Wi-Fi. Okay. I'm not sure if it's showing. Okay. Hope you guys can hear me. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to provide the text direction in here. Then we can get rid of that error. So we will be saying text direction. We are used to go with LDR. Okay. And let's restart the app and see. You guys, I'm not sure whether you guys can see it in here. It is showing the text that that we have given in here. So prove my point. I will go from LTR to our RTL. Okay, and if I refresh it, you guys can see it is reading backwards. Okay, it's reading backwards. So, but we are used to go with LTR, and once it is done, you guys can see the application need to be saved. And if I hit refresh, there you go. The application gets the text from left to right. Okay, so this is what it all takes you to run an application in native Android. So let me check whether I have Android Studio. Got electric eel. Not interested in this. Oops. Android Studio. Let me open one. I'm trying to get the emulator running. Okay. We stop this and start debugging. I'm not sure whether it's gonna select the emulator. Yeah, it's selecting the emulator. Okay. How do I know it is selecting the emulator? You can see that Gradle is running. So Gradle is doing its job. That means it's gonna be deploying this Android emulator. Okay, let's give it some time to compile it run. So we have seen that the application that we have developed is capable of running on web, capable of running on native. There were few missing on the iOS, but it should run that as in iOS as well. And obviously it is running on emulator at this point. It is taking time to boot up or do the necessary changes. Okay, so we have seen that. Okay, now we have this constant text, which is having the text is a widget in Flutter. Okay, this widget. How do I know there is a text widget, or what is the magic behind the text? How do you know the text widget exists? So it's really simple. And if you go to the Flutter documentation, and if you go to the ecosystem docs, if I'm not changing. User interfaces, widget. Introduction. Search widget catalog. Okay, yeah, there you go. Under user interfaces, you will see widget catalog. So there are a lot of widgets that is available in here. So for example, if you are into a good Flutter developer, all you need to know, at least to have good knowledge on these widgets. Okay, so for I know this text widget is there. Okay, so default text is there, rich text is there, there is this text, and it will give us a couple of examples. Okay, this is how you're going to show a text. Okay, you have to make the value, what is the alignment, what is the overflow, and what is style of these things. So anything that that you're going to be doing in the application, it's going to be in here. Okay, so you, as a good Flutter developer, all you need to know is how to make these widgets work. Okay, you guys can go ahead and try to develop any application, but knowing this widget catalog, okay, there is a widget for that, and we can easily do this task using this widget will help you. But in order to do that, you have to go through this widget catalog. Okay, there are a lot of widgets out there. Okay, at least these widgets should be known from you, should be known if you are a good Flutter developer. Okay, so there are like pretty much lot to go on. Okay, if you are not going with anything for Flutter, you won't be finding these things. So if you are trying to be a good developer, at least a Flutter developer, learn this widget catalog. Okay, learn this widget catalog no matter what. Then I mean, do not know you don't have to go hardly remember every widget and whatsoever, but go to basics. Okay. Okay, there is an app bar. Okay, remember that there is an app bar. That would be enough. There is something called columns. There is something called container. There is something called icon, and so on and so forth. So you guys should know there is something that we can that we can show something that we can work on. So so there is, if you're into form designing, that is there. If you're into layouts, these layouts are going to be there. Then there is something called center. Then okay, how to center something, and you can center widget, and how you can center something in Flutter. So that's easy. So you guys need to know about these widgets. Okay. Honestly, even sometimes I forget myself where to find, but I know, okay, there is this widget catalog. If I go to widget catalog, I can find something in here. Okay. All right. So widget catalog I have seen. Okay. Now, if you guys can see, I have run the same application in the Android emulator. Okay. If you guys can see, I'm not sure whether it is 100% correct, clear. Right around the time and all the status bar in here, it is showing the text that we have put in. Okay, so it is not honoring the app bar, the location that we have put. That's because we just show a text. That's it. Okay, we are showing a text with this text, and this is the basics. If I hit save, and if I do a hot reload, it should show in here. We do okay. I did a reload in here, but you can see that the text is showing, but not in a very good way that we are used to see. Okay, when we are developing an application, we have the option of, you know, at least have a decent UI, but since we have taken these things into our hand, it's not going to do the things for us. So what I will do right now is I will have this text widget. Okay, I have this text widget, and I can modify this. Okay, there is modifiers that we can use. Text style, and yeah, if you don't know how, you guys can take a look at it. Go to the widget itself and go to text, and they will show a lot of text styles, font weight, bold, and this kind of things. So I will use that section. Okay, const font weight, it is unnecessary const keyword. Okay, so the text view is there, and if I want to style this text more, and I can say font size, let's say 50, and if I hot reload this thing, it will be a little bit huge. You can see that. So anything to this text widget, we can access its modifiers and change this. So I want to change the style of the widget. I can use another widget called the text style. Text style is also a widget, and you have a lot of options inherited with what is the color, what is the background color, what is the font size, font weight, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's say I want to change the color. Okay, I have this text style. I will go with color. Then I have this color option, color dot colors dot, let's say, amber. Okay, and hit reload. Now it's showing in amber. Okay, we can literally change anything with this text as we like, and we can show it. So we, as we did on Swift UI and as we did on Jetpack Compose, what we can do is this is going to take a lot of space in our code, and it is not reusable. So what we can do is we can create a reusable component out of this. Okay, how are we going to do that? So if you since we have installed the Flutter extension, and if you click on this run app and go to this text widget, and if you, there will be a bulb or a bulb icon showing in here, and you will see plenty of options that you can use. Extract to a method, extract to a local variable, extract to a widget. So I want this text widget, the modified text widget, to have its own widget. I can say extract to widget. Okay, the new widget name, I would say big yellow text. Okay, it's rather than a normal text, I will call it big yellow text. And if I hit enter, and now you guys can see it is it has extracted this to big yellow text class. Okay, now the same thing that we have done, it is extract to a separate widget. Okay, and the application remains the same. It is going to act the same way that it have so far. Okay, but now it is a separate widget, and by default this is going to be a stateless widget, and you guys can see that it is showing the text. So for example, I need two of these things. Okay, you can just put two widgets in here. That is not acceptable in here. But what I can do is I can wrap this big text widget in a column or something like that. So I can have two more widgets, because run app is only gonna accepting a single widget. And if I put two widgets, it won't gonna work. So I have to wrap it around, let's say, a column. I will wrap it around a column, and there is this column widget. Okay, column widget is accepting children's, which means what are the children's it's gonna ask, what's it's gonna show. So let me remove the const. What is saying? Add const modifier. Okay. Ignore prefer const literal to create immutable. I think this one should be const. I don't know. Okay. For now, let's go like this. But if I the column widget is expecting children, and I can give many children as it likes. And if I refresh, now you guys can see column is having two of these widgets that I have developed. Even I can have a text widgets, that is no worry. Boring widget. Okay, and column widget. Okay, it's going to give the same answer, same error. I need the text direction, and the text direction is it here. And if I run it again, yeah, boring widget, it is showing in here. So we can have these. We can have this this kind of what do you call it? We can have column widget, which will have these children, and it's going to show these things. But again, you guys will see that even though we are showing these things in a way, but it is not looking good as a professional application. Okay, we have extract to a stateless widget, but it's not gonna do a very much big difference. Okay. But before we move on to styling these things up and make things more appealing, we will look at the widget that we have created right now, the extracted widget at least. Okay, so we have created a widget called big yellow text, and it is going to be extending the stateless widget. Okay, and there is something called when we are creating this is like the constructor for this, and it is expecting a key. Okay, this is something what we can consider as the unique identifier for this one. Okay, every time when we are creating a big text yellow, it gives us a unique identifier for each one of these things to identify these things separately. We are not going to be like super keen into this. If you like, you can just remove it. Yeah, we can have like this. Yeah, we can use this. It is not gonna give us an error, but it is saying, okay, when you are using a widget, use a key constructor. That means to uniquely identify the widgets that we have created. Okay, so we're gonna be creating this key-based constructor at this moment. Okay, that is fine. And the next thing is that when we are developing a widget, okay, there will be, depending on the type of the widget, we will have we will be called a method called build. Okay, stateless widget, we will have to override this build method. Okay, it's going to be a stateful widget. I think it's the same. No, for the if you are going with stateful widget, we have to override the create state method. But if you are going with the stateless widget, it's going to call a method called build. Okay, so it's going to pass the build context. We will look into build context in a different section. Right now, think build context as the caller or who's invoking this big yellow text to be created. Okay, this is the context from where this is called. And as you guys can see, the build method is always should return a widget. Okay, stateless widget or a stateful widget, only in stateless widget, we need to provide a widget out of this. Okay, so we have put our text in here, and it's going to show us this text that we need to see, and it will create a new widget and put it in here. So in a professional application that we're going to be developing, we will not put everything in one single file. We can move this widget to a separate file, and we can import that to our use. Right now, we will just have our text in here, and it will just work as it. Okay, so we have a widget, and one thing we have to remember, if it is a stateless widget, we have to override the build method and return a widget. Okay, if it is a stateful widget, we will look in what next what we have to do. So when we are creating a new widget out of our stateless widget, always remember to override the build method and return a widget. Why this build method is important, why we can't just return it anyhow. Let's see it when it is come to state. You will get an idea why this build is so important. Okay. All right. So we have created our first widget, and we have used several times. And this widget itself is easy to work with if you guys know what you guys are doing in here. All right, but the problem remains the same. We don't have, like, you know, when we are creating an application, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We can't have this excuse, and it's not gonna look that much eye appealing. Okay, so what we have to do is we can create a simple application. We can create a simple application without, we can create a simple application with all the stylings in place, with all the UI in place. So we don't have to worry about styling these things, following the best practices and all. We can just simply use something out of the box in the sense, by default, when we are creating an application, okay, when we are creating an application, material design is provided for you. Okay, material design is already installed. Like, if you guys can remember, when you run an application in Android, you get the material design out of the box. Okay, so we have this widget called my app. Okay, const my app, and what it does is, it, as it's supposed to, it is returning us, it is extending the stateless widget. And as you guys can remember, any stateless widget should override the build method, and when the build method is called, it should return a widget. So there is the widget called material app, which is coming from the material dart package, the Flutter material dart package. The material app, what it does is, it allows us to enter a title, it's allow us to define a theme, and it's allow us to define a home screen. Okay, so other than we try to go with all those things, we can just simply have this title and this theme, and we can just simply refresh, and there you go. The application changes, but you can't see a lot in here because we haven't defined a home. So what I'll do is, I will just go and create a home. Home is where you should see something. I would say const text home. Expected. Oh, sorry. Would be text. Okay, extra. So you guys can see that now. So if you guys can remember, the text that we had, earlier on, it is very small and concise, but now we have provided the text inside the material app, and by doing so, you guys can see that it is changing its colors. It is having some underlying, and some of the colors have been changed. If I go and change the color in here to green, I think this should change. Yeah, it's but anyhow, some modifications has happened to the text itself. The text is that you are seeing earlier on. If you use just simply the text widget, it's going to be a small and place it out of where. But now we can see something called text, but it is having some theme applied. That's because we are not simply returning a text widget, but we are returning a material app, and inside that material app is expecting a title, a theme, and a home. In this home, we have provided a text. Okay, in that way, you can see simple text. Okay, so what we can do is we rather than returning a text, there is another widget which make the application more appealing. That is called the scaffold widget. Widget. Okay, and if I hit enter rather than showing anything else, now you guys can see, all right, the scaffold has entered some new look into our application. Okay, rather than showing the material app with the home screen of a simple text, now I have given the scaffold widget. Okay, scaffold widget has few other options. For example, scaffold widget can have a app bar. Okay, app bar is one of the the top bars that you will see in Android application. You guys can see an app bar. So now you can say, okay, I will provide an app bar type of app bar. Okay, and the okay, I can't remember the app bar. Okay, app bar simply title. Okay, I will give an app bar with the title. Let's say, did I do something wrong? The title, and I will give a text widget to the title. Is it wrong? Widget list. It is app bar, right? Let me change. Return scaffold app bar. Yeah, the syntax are correct. I'm having an app bar, but app bar is not right. Okay, let me check the docs for quick. So I will go to material components and I will go to scaffold. Okay, what's the scaffold has to offer? Is the code example with a body and let me see the code. So somewhere in layout. Let's see, was it in view? Sliver appa, no, I'm looking at sliver appa. Should be in here. Okay, scaffold is here. Okay. Yes, it got. Okay, I think I'm missing few of the stuff. Let's go ahead and okay, we have scaffold, and there is what do you call floating action button. If I'm not mistaken, I can put a floating action button. Yes, I'll just copy and paste this floating action button. On pressed, I'm not gonna do anything. Okay, let me code this, might be a little bit easy. So I need to show a floating action button. Okay, so what I do is I will say floating action button, and I have to create a floating action button in here. Okay, floating action button on press. What should happen if I click on the on press? What should happen in here? You can say print. Okay. I don't think I need the I need the function to be called. It's unpressed. Let me check. Unpressed. Unpressed, what should happen? In against value. Giving a lot of this. Let me revert back. So I have floating action button, yes. Add required fields. So what should happen on click? I would say print. Text. That cannot be happen. Why is it? Printing is okay, that is fine. Insert a column. Press method is I can extract the method as a print method. And just simply give and simply give the print method, right? Let me check. increment count. What is going on? Notification button, tool tip, check that. Let me put those things as well. Okay, that is fine. Okay. Nope. Okay, I'm not sure why I'm saying this, but so when we are developing a floating action button, the first thing that we need to do is we need to have the on press method. So if we are pressing on it, what should happen? So right now it is not showing anything. So it should be void on press. What should happen is it should call this method on print. Okay, just give me an error. I'm not sure why it is going invalid const value. Okay, maybe because I am in a stateless widget. I'll double check on that, guys, and get back to you. So I think the floating action button is not available in here. So let's go ahead with the scaffold. So scaffold is here, and we can change the UI appearance by looking at this scaffold. And for further investigation, what we'll do is we will just not use a single scaffold, but we will use this my home page widget. Okay, I will look into my home page widget right now. So my home page widget is something called a stateful widget. Okay, stateful widgets. That means when we are creating this widget, it's gonna retain some sort of state within our widget. Okay, and that state will be used to render our application. So if you look at the stateless widget should override the build method. But if you are going with stateful widget, you have to go with something called create state method. You should override the create state method, and look at here, you should return not a widget but a state widget. Okay, my home page is a widget, so we are returning a state. We are not returning a widget, but we are returning a state for my home page. Okay, so my home page is the widget that we are working with, and it is, since it is a stateful widget, when we are returning the create state method, we should return a state with my home page widget. Okay, so let's see how we can create a state in Flutter. So really simple. We'll just uncomment these sections. Yeah. Okay. So if you look at this now, we are creating something called underscore my home page state. Okay. There are two reasons why we use this underscore in here. So underscore in Dart resemble private. Okay, private in the sense you guys know the access modifiers available in other languages like public, default, private, and protected, this kind of things. So in Dart, we donate something which is in private with using this underscore. If you so you're seeing something with underscore, that means it is private. So we are trying to create. So we are creating a stateful widget. And when we are creating a stateful widget, it should override the create state method. The create state method always going to return state of my home page. Okay, it's going to be a state and for the my home page widget. This is what they are expecting. Okay, so we are creating a state for that. It's really simple. We have created a private class. Sorry, and you can clearly see that it is extending the state of my page. So state is one of the classes coming from Flutter itself, and it is taking my home page as input. And you can see when we are extending a state with my home page, it is also going to be calling a method called build, like you have seen in stateless widgets. But now it is in the state itself. So we are returning this in the state, and the state will return something called a build method, like what you have seen in the stateless widget. The only difference is in here that it's gonna have a state. That means it's gonna remember the things. Remember the things we will be looking at. Okay, so stateful widget in here, stateful widget is a place where we'll be having these things stored around. So ultimately it's gonna also return a widget, but now the state is with us. Okay, so like what we have done earlier on, we will return a scaffold, but I think this scaffold is working because scaffold should be under a stateful widget. That's why our previous encounter did not work. Okay, so we have a scaffold. Okay, that scaffold is having an app bar. Okay, app bar is the bar that you will see in here. You can see that Flutter demo home page, and the title for that, the title is what we are seeing in here, and title for that's going to be a text widget, and the widget.title is passed on to this. But if you close a look at it, this, what is this widget.text? If you have done any programming, you guys can see that the widget is not a variable defined in here, nowhere to be found. The widget.title is shown in here, but the widget variable is nowhere to be found in here. Okay, but we can call widget.title. So what is that magic behind that? So the thing is, if you add a little bit, you can see that we are creating this state. We are creating this state for what? For my home page. Okay, if you go to my home page and if you look at them, you will find a title. Okay, so we are creating this state for this widget, and this widget contains something called title. So we have this widget keyword or widget variable under the state, and whatever we are having in here, these variables, we can access those within our state. So if you have final string title, it can be accessed here. Okay, that's where this widget.title is coming from. Since we are in the state of the given widget, whatever the variables that we have exposed, we can access those things in our state. Okay, so whatever the stateful widget receives in here, we are showing that in here. So if you go to the my home page, okay, my home page is expecting a title in here, Flutter demo home page, and that is passed to the stateful widget. The stateful widget contains this title, and whatever the value that we have passed, it is stored in this state, in this widget, and it is passed to our state using this widget.title. Okay, see the flow of data. So we are creating a stateful widget with the title Flutter home demo home page, and it is pushed in here. And if you want to use that within the state, we can call this widget.title and whatever the variables that we have stored in here. So these are ways of passing values to its children, or to its state, at least in this case. So we have a bar with the title and containing a text, and we can have a column. Okay, sorry, a scaffold should have a body, and in this scenario, the body is going to be a center widget. Okay, a center widget is accepting only a one single child. Okay, you can only center a one child. So the center widget is accepting a child, which is going to be a column. Okay, the column is having these modifiers, we can say. The modifier is the main axis alignment is going to go with center. That means everything that in the main axis is going to be in center. And the column is accepting children's. Okay, it is accepting children's. Different type of widgets it's going to accept. The first one is a text widget, which shows this text. And the second one, another widget, which shows some values. Okay. And you can see that body is ending in here. Okay, for the scaffold, there is app bar, there is body, and there is this floating action button. Floating action button is the button that you see on right around here. I'm not sure whether you guys can see this one. This is what we call a floating action button. So scaffold is accepting a floating action button, and we can define what should happen. Like if you can remember, in Android, we have seen the on-click listener. In here, we can say on press. What should happen on pressing this, and we can have a tooltip. That means if you hover over this and press it a little bit longer, you can see that the tooltip is shown. And the child, what should we show in this floating action button? Normally, when on a floating action button, we can show a text, but the recommendation is to show an icon with the add button. Whatever the icon you like, you can put it in here. So there are like plenty of icons as well. Maybe I can use this is the add button. I can change it to icons dot, I don't know, home. You can see it is changing to a home button. Okay, so likewise, you can have a floating action button, you can have a body, you can have an app bar. So there can be other variables, other things that the scaffold can hold. Okay, so remember, this scaffold is something material design, material is provided. You can have an app bar, you can have a body, you can have a floating action button, but this does not limit your imagination. Okay, everything should be in a scaffold, and that scaffold should have a body and app bar and like that. You can design your own widget where you can use that. But if you're in a hurry, if you want to show something really fast, you can use the scaffold and just demonstrate with your users or whatever you like. Sometimes if the user is accepting this UI, you can go ahead and keep it even as well. But that does not mean you can have your own UI. Material design is one of the options. You can have any other options as you like. Okay, so one thing what I would like to show in here is the state. Okay, so in floating action buttons, you can see that the counter that we see in here changes. Okay, we in the state of the home page widget, you can see a variable called underscore count. So as you can see, underscore resembles the private access modifier. So it is going to start from 1 0, but I can start in from 10. That's up to us. Okay, but I have to hard reload this application. Now you can see it is starting from 10. So the initial state of this is going to be 10. So what should happen on pressed? That means when I pressed on this, it is calling this underscore increment counter method, which is in the state itself. Okay, and you can see we are incrementing the counter by clicking +1. Okay, but you guys can see that it is in a variable or a callback function called set state. Okay, set state, and within the function's body we are incrementing. But what will happen if we do put it in outside of the state? Okay, what should happen if we put it in the outside of this method? We'll do that for fun, and we will print that as well. I will say print underscore counter, right? Okay, we have, what we have done is we are incrementing the counter when we are pressing it, but we are not calling it in the set, but we are incrementing it and we are printing it. To see the debug console, I have to, this is the widget inspector, the widgets inspector. There is the debug console. No, where's the debug console? There is the widget inspector. Where is that widget inspector? Okay, the debug inspector should be here, but I can't find it. Where is the debug? Okay. You have to click in here and go to debug console. Okay, let's restart the application. And if I click on it, you can see the Flutter is outputting the count as 13, 14, and 15, 16. There you go. But you guys can see that the counter that we have set around, it is not incrementing. Okay, even though the value is incrementing, yes, but the counter, the value that we are showing in here, it is not getting reflected. And why is that? Okay, it was working earlier because it was in the set state, but right now it is incrementing, but it is not showing. We can do something like this. If you guys can remember the debug console, it was around 20. Okay, now if I go and do something like that, changing the code red. Now you guys can see it is changed red, as well as the value got updated to 20. Okay. So what happened? What happened in here is I have changed the value in here. The root of the application color for red, from red to green to red, and I have clicked few times now. Even now, if I change that again to green, yes, it is changing. So the root of the application is changing its color. That means, okay, there is a modification going on. Whatever on the tree of this widget, okay, anything that is under this, okay, the material having several childrens around here, these things should get refreshed as well. Okay, by the time we are refreshing the home, the state of my home page, it was around 20. Now the value has changed, and this is going to be calling this build method. By the time the counter is in a different value, the value is changed. But when we are clicking on this button, it is no longer going to be updated, because we are not telling Flutter, hey, we are changing a value, you should update accordingly. Okay, so only if we do this counter plus plus within the set state method, okay, set state method, okay, then what will happen is, when we are incrementing the counter, Flutter is saying, okay, there are going to be some changes to this state. Okay, look for those changes. That means at least the end of this execution, and rebuild the UI. The UI should be rebuilt. In this scenario, the my home page is going to be rebuilt. Okay, so when we are rebuilding, that means this build method is called again. Okay, the build method is called again, then it's going to refresh its UI. Okay, so that's why, rather than incrementing the values, we should always inform the Flutter, okay, there is a change in variables, you should add accordingly. That is done by this set state method. Okay, if you guys can remember, in Android, we had the same thing. We need to make a rememberable rememberable variable. Then only if you put a remember keyword, it only update values. In Swift UI, we have to put at state variable, otherwise it won't update. Likewise, in Flutter, we have to call back these things in set state method. If we put set state and we change the values, then and only there, the variables gonna change and it's gonna get updated on the UI. Okay. So yeah, so you guys can see the similarity between these frameworks. So the build method, the calling is happening and everything is going on. The increment counter, the set state method, is where the method when we want to change the UI itself. Okay. All right. So I think we are coming to the end of the session as the time permits. Take a good look at Flutter, give it a try, and you guys should be able to map out the similarities between these things. Okay, you guys can see that clearly. There are the same things we have seen in React, not React, in Android Compose or Swift UI. The concept is the same. Okay, so it's really easy to adapt to this kind of situation. As you might have seen, we have written an application under 100 lines. Okay, we can even reduce these things and keep it to 50, but that's gonna make that's gonna need a little bit time. But anyhow, write your Flutter application, check whether you can run it on Android, run it on web, run it on emulator, run it on at least native. That's kind of things you guys should do, and try to find out various ways that you can develop Android and iOS applications. Okay, do you guys have any questions up until this before I wind up? Okay, seems not. Okay, even I can make mistakes. Let's go ahead and fix those things. Develop your first Flutter application, develop your Compose application. If you are capable of developing a Swift application, do that as well. Okay, we will move into more in-depth things later on. Now, since we have covered a lot with native, we have covered hybrid. We will be looking at more frameworks, so you guys can have a look around those things. Okay, if there is nothing else, let's stop